When I was coming to philosophical consciousness, the great battles between the systems, which began in the 20th century, were drawing to a close, although the lightning and the thunder were still impressive. I cut my teeth on issues dividing idealist and realist and the various schools of realism. I learned about them at my father's knee, and perhaps for that reason, never got into pragmatism. My father regarded it as shifty, ambiguous, and indecisive. You remember Lovejoy's 13 varieties of pragmatism. Well, he thought that there was a continuum of pragmatism. Time is unreal, sense data are parts of physical objects, mind is a distinct substance from the body, we intuit essences, there is something you can get your teeth into. Pragmatism seemed all method and no results. I spent my early years fighting in the wars against positivism, the last of the great metaphysical systems. Always a realist, flirting with Oxford, Aristotelianism, Platonism, intuitionism, but somehow convinced at the back of my mind that something like critical realism and evolutionary naturalism must be true. It wasn't until I began to think my own thoughts that I ran across Dewey and began to read him. It wasn't easy going, certainly lacking the deceptive clarity of the British empiricists, but certainly not as opaque as Hegel. He caught me at a time when I was moving away from the myth of the given. And those of you who are aware of the stress I lay on the mythical character of the given must understand surely that I must have been addicted to this myth in order to react so violently against it, and that would indeed be true. That would indeed be true. So that was a revolution against an earlier point of view of my own. I'm tempted to associate the phrase the myth of the given with Dewey's, what Dewey calls the myth of antecedent reality. I suspect there is some connection there. And I was also rediscovering the coherence theory of meaning. It was Dewey's idealistic background which intrigued me the most. I found similar themes in Royce and later Peirce. I was astonished at what I had missed. Although I consider myself a scientific realist, Dewey's world of experience is very much akin to what I call the manifest image of man in the world, which is really the gateway, as I see it, to scientific realism. One of my father's early papers was called Whose Experience? He implied that the answer had to be your experience, or my experience. But Dewey, of course, implied our experience. For intersubjectivity and community were at the center of his thought as they are of mine. As far as naturalism is concerned, that too had negative overtones. It was wishy-washy and ambiguous. One could believe almost anything about the world, and even some things about God, and be a naturalist. What was needed was a new materialism, a new non-reductive materialism. My father could call himself a materialist in all good conscience, for at that time he was the only one, or about the only one. I, however, do not own the term, and I am so surprised by some of the views of the new materialists that until the dust settles, I prefer the term naturalism, which combines, which while retaining its methodological connections, has acquired a substantive content. Subjectivity and community were at the center of his thought as they are of mine.